Hi, fourth grade. Welcome back. I hope your work yesterday went well. Today we are going to be doing some extra practice and review for chapter 18. You will not have an individual assignment today, so just make sure you are watching this video and taking notes along with me as you go. This serves as your review for your test that you will take tomorrow. So go ahead and have your textbook open to page 484. Also, make sure you have your journal labeled Chapter 18 Extra Practice / Review. So just a couple of things to go over. If you'd like to write this in your journal, you may. If you need more time, you can pause. If you would like to just listen right now, that's fine also. A couple things that I want to review with you is what a decimal is. When we started this chapter, we learned that a decimal is a number that has one or more digits to the right of the decimal point. This special guy here is called our decimal point. So a decimal is any number that has at least one or more digit to the right of a decimal point. That's what a decimal is. A decimal point separates wholes from parts. Just like in a fraction or a mixed number, a fraction shows a part out of a whole. Same thing with decimals. So in your journal, you should have written down this chart somewhere where we wrote out that the place before a decimal point is called the ones place. Then we read the decimal point as the word and. Then each digit after the decimal point mirrors the ones that are before. So this normally goes in whole numbers, ones, and then tens. Behind the decimal point, it goes decimal point tenths, then hundredths, then thousandths, and it would continue to mirror just like our whole numbers do before the decimal point. Also, we learned that decimals can be written just like regular numbers that we learned at the beginning of the school year. Decimals can be written in number form, in standard form, in word form, and also in expanded form. So we are going to be reviewing some of those ideas today. You do not have to copy this down in your journal unless you'd like to. If you would like to, go ahead and pause the video and then start again with me when you're ready. All right, class, so we're going to start work on set A, write the decimal and fraction shown by each model. So this is how we started our chapter. This was a while ago now, so it's okay if you're feeling a little rusty. That's why we're going to practice today. So we write decimals that are in tenths and hundredths, thousandths, etc. Okay, so if they are not in tenths, hundredths, thousandths, then you need to get them in that position. These are called numbers that are in base 10. So if it is not a base 10, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, then we have to do some work with the fraction. I just wanted to remind you of that before we get started. All right, so decimal and fractions are related to one another. If I were using this model for number 1, I see that there are 4 parts shaded out of 10 total parts. 4 parts out of 10 parts would be the fraction 4 tenths. As a decimal, we can write that as 0.4. We read this as 0 and 4 tenths because the 4 is in the tenths place. Number 2, I see a money amount. I see 2 dimes that are each worth 10, 2 pennies that are each worth 1. Altogether, I have 22 cents. In order to write that as a fraction, I need to think of how many cents there are in a dollar. That's right, you should be thinking there are 100 cents in a dollar. So that means that is our total in our whole. Our total parts is 100 cents. And our parts of our total is 22. We have 22 cents out of 100 cents in a dollar. We can write this fraction 22 hundredths as a decimal. 0 and 22 hundredths, or 0.22. All right, next, number 3. I see this number line here. I see that this dot here is somewhere between 0.5 or 5 tenths and 1 or 10 tenths. I see that the number line is broken into 5 pieces. So I know that it's 0.5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this would be 7 tenths. So go ahead for number 3. We're going to write 7 tenths as a fraction. Then we are going to write this as a decimal. We have no holes, so we write a 0, then a decimal point, and this is tenths, so our 7 needs to be in the tenths place. We read this decimal as 0 and 7 tenths. All right, hopefully that is starting to come back to you from our first lessons together. Okay, we're going to keep working on that, so it's okay if you're still feeling a little rusty. We're going to continue set A, number 4. Write each fraction as a decimal. You may draw a picture. I'm not going to make you do that today, so no worries. We might draw a couple out together just to make sure we still remember how to do it. So for number 4, I have 9 tenths. I need to write that as a decimal. As a decimal, 9 tenths, I can tell, first of all, I have no holes. So I need to write a 0 in the ones place, then a decimal point. Then I need to think, am I writing tenths or hundredths? I can see that the fraction is out of tenths, so I know that my digit in the numerator needs to come in the tenths place. So 9 tenths is the same thing as saying 0.9 or 9 tenths. All right, number 5. I have 17. Sorry, the smartboard is a little wonky in that spot. Let me get that number somewhere else. Okay, number 5. I have 17 hundredths. I need to write that as a decimal. First of all, I ask myself, do I have any holes? No, I do not. Write a 0 there. Oh boy. So we're going back to that spot where I lost it. Here we go. All right. So I have 0, and now I need to figure out which to write behind it. I have 17 hundredths. I know that my last place needs to come out to the hundredth spot. 17 will fill that. So we are fine there. I'm sorry it looks a little wonky. That's our special line in the classroom that never likes to work with us. All right, working on number 6 is 7 tenths. Okay, again, the first question I ask myself is, do I have any holes? The answer is no, so I write a 0. Then I add a decimal point. Now I need to decide at what place to write the 7 in. I see that we are working with tenths. I know that this is the tenths place, so I need to write that 7 in the tenths place. Okay, number 7. Number 7 is 5 hundredths. 5 hundredths. All right, first question, do we have any holes? No, we do not, so we can write a 0. Then we need a decimal point. I need to figure out where should that 5 go. I know that my total number is hundredths, so I know that the second place is hundredths. So that means that my 5 should be written in the hundredths place. Now this number is not a 2-digit number, so what do I need to do at that open blank spot? I need to write a place value 0 in there so that it holds the place of 0 tenths, because I do not have any tenths. I just have 5 hundredths. All right, let's take a look at one more like that. at, let's take a look at number 12. Number 12 says 6/100. I have no holes, so I can write a 0. I know that my total parts in the hole is 100. I know that this space here is the 100th space, so I know the 6 needs to go there. I only have 6/100. I don't have any tenths, and I don't have more than 6, so a 0 needs to go there to hold the place value. All right, so those ones are pretty simple, but let's take a look at what happens when we have a fraction that is not a base 10. For example, number 10 and 11, 1/2 and 1/4. We're going to solve those together. All right. If you think you remember how to solve it, go ahead and pause the video, try, and then unpause to see if you were correct. Otherwise, I will keep instructing you if you're like, I have no idea, Mrs. Kendall, please don't make me do this by myself. If you're feeling that way, go ahead and keep watching with me now. So we are going to need to change the denominator into a base 10. Right now, these are not in a base 10. I have 1/2 and I have 1/4. To get them into a base 10, I need to think, can I multiply it by something to equal 10? Or can I multiply it by something to equal 100? If we can multiply it by something to equal 10, that would be our best guess. That would save us the greatest amount of time. So I need to think, can I multiply 2 by something to equal 10 in the denominator? The answer is yes. I can multiply 2 times 5 to equal 10. Whatever I do to the denominator, I need to also do to the numerator. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 times 5 is 10. Now that I have this number as tenths, I can now easily make it into a decimal. I have no holes. I need to decide whether I should write the 5 in the first place or the second. I see that we have tenths in our denominator, so I know that this needs to go into the tenths place. All right, so my answer is 0.5 or 5/10. All right, let's take a look at number 11 for 1/4. Can I multiply 4 by something to equal 10 in the denominator? No, unfortunately I cannot. So instead what I need to do is I need to multiply 4 by something to equal 100 in the denominator. This is where we thought of our quarters. How many quarters make up $1 or 100 cents? That's right, 4 quarters make up 100 cents. So each quarter is worth 25. So 4 times 25 will give me 100. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 25. 1 times 25 is 25. 4 times 25 is 100. Now I can very easily write this as a decimal. I have no holes, so I write a 0, then a decimal point. I have to decide where to write that 25. I see that I am working with hundredths, so I know that my last digit needs to be in the hundredths place. My last digit here is a 5, and I have a 2 to fill in the tenths place, 25 hundredths. All right, you guys, great work. So now we're going to be looking at different amounts of money. To write the amount as a fraction of $1, a decimal, and a money amount. We'll solve a couple of these together. Let's take a look at number 14. I have 3 quarters. Each quarter equals how many cents? 25 cents. So I have 3 times 25, which is going to equal 75 cents. So I need to write that as a fraction, a dollar amount, and a decimal. So let's write that as a fraction of a dollar first. A dollar is worth 100 cents, so that's your total parts in your denominator. 75 is the parts out of the whole. So 75 hundredths is a fraction of a dollar. Then we need to write this as a decimal. I have no holes. Decimal point, I'm working with hundredths, so I know I need to come out to the hundredths place, which is the second spot. So my 5 should go there, my 7 should go there, 75 hundredths. Then writing this as a money amount is super simple. We rewrite the decimal, but with a dollar sign at the beginning. Okay, let's solve another one like that. Number 15, 2 dimes and 2 pennies. 2 dimes, 2 pennies. Okay, so 2 dimes is 20 plus 2 pennies is 22. So I have 22 cents. So I need to write that as a fraction, a decimal, and a dollar amount. So I have 100 cents total in a dollar. So 100 will always be my denominator when we're talking about cents of a dollar. 22 is the parts out of the whole that I have. So that's 22 hundredths. Then I need to write that as a decimal amount. I have no holes. I have 22 hundredths. I write that as 2. No extra zeros in there because I read this number saying 22 and the last place value, which would be hundredths. So 22 hundredths. Dollar sign is writing it as a dollar amount is even easier. Just write a dollar sign and copy your decimal. Dollar sign 0.22. All right, I would like you to go ahead and try number 16 and 17 on your own. Pause the video. I will show you the answers in one moment. So number 16 and number 17. Go ahead and add those up together. Pause the video and I will unpause when you're done and I'll show you the answers. Okay, so you should at this point have solved this on your own. So number 16, ooh, that's super wiggly. I don't want to go there. Hold on, let me find a better spot to write. I'm gonna just move these around a little bit. Put those over there. Okay, so number 16, you should have had 1/4 is 25 plus a nickel is another 5, so 25 and 5 is 30. So your fraction should have been 30 hundredths, which equals 0.30, which equals 30 cents. Dollar sign 0.30. Number 17, 2/4 is 50 cents plus 3 dimes is 30. 50 and 30 is 80 plus 4 cents for pennies is 84. So we have 84 hundredths, 0.84 or 84 hundredths, and 84 cents or dollar sign 0.84. All right, if you are feeling good, go ahead and continue to the next part. If you need a little bit more review, go ahead and watch those problems be solved again. All right, we're going to now apply some word problems. This is number 20 from set A. Jane is reading a book that has 20 pages. She has read 56 pages. What part of the book has Jane read? Write the answer as a decimal. All right, so for number 20, I know that Jane is reading a book that has 100 pages total. She has read part of it, which is 56 pages. Does that sound like a fraction to you? It does to me. It sounds like 56 parts out of 100 total parts, or 56 pages out of 100 total pages, which would be 56 hundredths. To write that as a decimal, because this is in a base 10, I can just go ahead and write it as a decimal, 0.56. I read this as 0 and 56 hundredths. The 6 is in the hundredths place. That's very, very important. All right. Number 21. Spencer has 10 math problems to do for homework. He has done 8 of the problems. Which part of his math homework has Spencer done? Write the answer as a decimal and as a fraction. So number 21 says that Spencer has 10 math problems to do. He's done 8. That again sounds to me like a fraction. He has done 8 parts out of 10 total parts. As a fraction, because this is a base 10, I can just go ahead and write that as 0.8 or 8 tenths, making sure that my 8 is in the tenths place because the denominator is a 10. So my question asks me, which part of his math homework has Spencer done? He's done 8 tenths of it. Write the answer as a decimal and a fraction, which we have just done. Most of your tests tomorrow will be word problems, so make sure that you're comfortable with those before you take your test. All right, taking a look at set B, we're now going to look at some mixed numbers, writing them from decimal models and number lines to fractions, mixed numbers, and decimals. So looking at number 1 on set B, I see how many holes? I see 1 hole is shaded, so I need a 1 in the ones place, decimal point, and then I see 1, 2, 3 parts out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I'm going to write down 1.3 because I have 3 parts out of 10. This is also equal to 1 and 3 tenths. All right, taking a look at number 2. I see number 2. How many holes do I have? I have 1 hole, so I'll write that in the ones place. Then I'm going to write a decimal point to separate my parts. I'm doing that because do you see how this is not all the way shaded in? Only part of it is shaded. That's why I need to write a decimal point to show that just part of a whole is shaded. So taking a look here, I see that this is broken into hundredths. I see that there are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, plus 7 more. There are 77 parts shaded in out of 100. That would be 77 hundredths. We can show this as 1 and 77 over 100. All right, go ahead and try number 3. Pause the video when you're ready for the answer. Unpause. All right, number 3. I see on number 3 that there are 2 holes, so a 2 should go in the ones place. I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths, so a 5 should go in the tenths place, which would leave us with the number 2 and 5 tenths. All right, a little bit more practice for us. For this one, I'm going to solve 2 for you, and then I'm going to have you do 3 on your own, okay? This is very similar to what I've already reviewed with you. The only difference is we have whole numbers this time. So when we ask ourselves that first important question, how many holes do we have? This time our answer is not going to be 0. It's going to be a whole number. So looking at number 4, I have 2 and 9 tenths. My directions say to write an equivalent mixed number or a decimal for each, then write the word form. Okay, so to write the word form, we just write it out how we say it in our normal math language. So 2 and 9 tenths, I'm going to write an equivalent decimal first. So 2 and 9 tenths, I'm going to ask myself, how many holes do I have? Well, I have 2 holes, so that number goes before the decimal point. Then I'm going to write out 9 tenths. The 9 will go in the tenths place because I am working with tenths. I read this number as 2 and 9 tenths. So I'm going to write that out in word form, 2 and 9 tenths. All right, next one, number 5. Number 5 is 3.17. We're going to write this because it's a decimal. We're going to write it as a mixed number. So first, the digit before the decimal point is our whole number. So I'm going to write this big as a whole number 3. Then I need to write out the decimal point. I read this as 3 and 17 hundredths. So my fraction is going to be 17 hundredths. Very good. Now I need to write this out in word form. Super simple. We just write it how we read it. 3 and 17 hundredths. So I'm going to write that out. 3 and 17 hundredths. All right, go ahead and solve numbers 6, 7, and 8 on your own. Pause the video when you're ready, unpause so I can show you the answers. All right, solving 6, 7, and 8. Here are the answers for you. Number 6, the equivalent decimal you should have written is 4.09. Very important that that 0 is there because this is hundredths. The 9 needs to be in the hundredths place. We read this as 4 and 9 hundredths. Those are the words you should have written out. Number 7, the equivalent decimal is 3.1 for 3 and 1 tenth. The 1 is in the tenths place because our denominator says 10. Make sure you wrote out the words 3 and 1 tenth. Number 8 is 6 and 5 tenths. 6 and 5 tenths is the same thing as 6 and 5 tenths. Please make sure you have written out that in words, 6 and 5 tenths. All right, we're going to skip through a little bit because you are doing such a great job working with me right now. So there is no independent assignment today. You can use page 486 in your textbook for extra practice with these skills. If you need some more help, make sure you log on to our Zoom chat at 11 a.m. So that I can help you. Tomorrow's math assignment will be Chapter 18 test, so you won't be seeing a Smart Notebook presentation from me. You will just be working on your Chapter 18 test. Please make sure to show your work, and remember this is a test. So you can ask your parents questions, but please don't have them give the answers to you. I want to see what you know so I know how to help you best when we return to school or to continue our online distance learning. So remember, no assignments for the next for today. Just tomorrow's Chapter 18 test, and I will see you guys on, I guess it would probably be Tuesday that you would be doing this next one. Will be lesson or Monday or Tuesday, depending on when you're working, but it will be starting chapter 19.1 for our next lesson after you finish your test. Thanks so much for all your hard work. Keep doing good things.